we get started. You ready?
Okay. Oh, okay. No, I just on? Randy was on, wasn't she?
She didn't answer, I'll call her.
Oh, okay. Okay. This morning I want to talk about from the 4th chapter of John. I want to talk primarily about worship and possibly the Passover. In this 4th chapter of John, this begins, actually this chapter talks about the woman, the Samaritan woman who was at the well, and the lady with whom Jesus had a conversation concerning her husband. Thank you, dear. And Jesus told the woman that he asked her for a drink, and he told her, whoever drink the water that he gives will not thirst again. And the woman asked him for that water. Then it goes on to when they talked about the husbands and stuff, and she says she perceived Jesus to be a prophet. And Jesus says to her, the hour is going to come when you should not neither worship in the mountain nor at Jerusalem. And then it rolls into you worship, you know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of Judea, or the Judeans, or the Jews. Okay, this is what I want to look at. Jesus said, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship, you know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation of the Jews. But the hour cometh and is, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Now, that's the verse that I'm primarily going to be a lot here. When I look at this, Jesus says that the hour is coming when you will not worship in the mountain, in this mountain, nor at Jerusalem. Now, if mountain is talking about elevation, right? And Jerusalem is talking about a place of righteousness. And so Jesus is primarily, is he really talking about physical locations where you don't have to go to worship, where you won't have to be to worship? Is he talking about that? And what is he talking about when he's speaking concerning worship? I think that we have an issue with the whole concept of worship. Because we understand that worship means to surrender, right? So, okay. It means to surrender. Now, if worship means to surrender, then and what we say and what we think, both are very important, right? So, if we believe and we have been taught that we worship when? On Sunday, right? We also have been taught that we go to church to worship, right? So, if we have been told that, what we have actually been told is, on Sunday you surrender to God, right? And you surrender to God at church. That's what we've been told. And I want to delve a bit deeper into that, but I want to first look at this thing, the mountain and the and Jerusalem, because I think that we have something here that has a dual meaning. Would you say, Bob? You think that? I think it has a dual meaning. What I think is happening here is that Jesus is using a geographical presence and a geographical religious place to make a spiritual statement. Does that make sense? And the spiritual statement that he's making goes far beyond what we think he's saying. Because there was a time when all the Jews at Passover had to come into Jerusalem to worship. And when the kingdom split between Judea and Samaria, that's when the worship and the Samaritans began to worship in Samaria because they intermarried with the Samaritans. The Hebrews did. And the Judeans in the southern kingdom, which is Judea, did not allow them or would not permit them to come to the temple because they were not considered to be pure. Now, so when we talk about the idea of worship and surrendering for those concepts, we have to think about it from a subconscious perspective. Subconsciously, we have not cleared that up yet. The idea of surrendering at church or worshiping at church or surrendering on Sunday, worshiping on Sunday. Maybe, just maybe, that is one of the reasons that we have so many issues. Because subconsciously, we still are holding to what we've been taught, that you don't surrender to the Father to Sunday, as opposed to all week. Well, all the time, I should say. So if we are holding to that subconsciously, then that is something that we truly need to deal with. Because if we don't come to grips with dealing with that, then how can we understand how to surrender, what it means to surrender? What does it mean? If worship means to surrender, then how do we do that? What were the Hebrews doing when they came to the temple to worship or to surrender? Mark.
What is the definition of surrender?
Surrender to love or to submit to.
The reason why I brought it up is in traditional churches on Sunday, do people really get to that?
No, because we don't define worship like that. The way the worship is defined is given reference to. And that is the Greek translation of worship. But the Aramaic translation of worship is to surrender. So, let me mention earlier before we got started to Barb that the Greek certainly does not do justice to the Aramaic. That was one of the things I was making a reference to. If you don't look at it from the Aramaic, you miss the whole point. So, because the idea of reverence, as a matter of fact, in the New Testament, some translations of fear. If you look at what fear in the Greek, it talks about reverence. And anything that you feel, you submit to, so it's a roundabout way of getting there. But the direct root is the Aramaic, which talks about the surrender. I believe also that the surrendering includes what was brought to the temple in terms of the sacrifices that were brought to the temple. That those were surrendered to the priest. And that was supposed to have been as a result of those who were surrendering the sacrifice and having surrendered themselves. That's on the reason there is a Sabbath is because, first of all, Sabbath means to complete or to rest, or it means to complete, it can mean to rest, or it can mean to reflect or to review. Depending on the context of it. The root of Sabbath is Sabbath, and it references those things that I just mentioned. So, that being the case, worship means to surrender, so the purpose of surrendering is to be reflective of your relationship to reflect on your relationship with the Creator. So every Sabbath, which was Saturday, a reflection, the people who celebrated Sabbath were reflecting on the previous week. Does that make sense? Okay.
So then, if every Sabbath is a reflection on your relationship with the Creator the previous week, then worship then has to be the reflection of the Creator on a second-by-second, minute-by-minute basis.
Right.
Right. Sabbath is allowing you times, okay, did I do all that I could do to be like my Creator? In a sense.
And that's like he says, the surrendering is a second minute thing. If we were to, let's say at the end of the day, right? You come in for work, come in for wherever you are, stop doing whatever you were doing. And you're okay, it's the kitchen. Stop doing that. And you had some frustrated moments, or things did not go the way that you had anticipated they should. So once you come to the end of the day, if you were to stop and reflect on everything that frustrated you, or everything that did not fall into place the way you think it should, and ask yourself why. And see if you cannot find the answer to the why, then you find a way to let it go. And what actually happens is, it prepares you for the next obstacle that may put you in that same position. You understand what I'm saying? So in that regard, every day becomes a Sabbath. Because what you're actually doing, when you reflect on what you went through, you're also reflecting on what you experienced with the Creator, either with knowledge of it, with being conscious of it, or not being conscious. And what it does, it helps us to be more conscious or more cognizant of who the Creator is all the time, if we stop and reflect. Can you see what I'm saying?
So we're reflecting on what happened that we didn't agree with, or why the attitude.
Right. Go ahead.
I go a little wider than that.
Okay.
I say, always think you have to reflect on the frustration. Reflect a little bit on the joy too. I mean,
Oh,
two sides of it. Yeah. So why are you feeling good about something but not about something bad about something else? You know?
And that may help you arrive at an understanding quickly.
We're looking for balance.
Yeah.
And
So, taking what you said, that may help us arrive at an understanding much faster if we reflect on what, you know, what was right and what didn't. On both, on everything, the whole day. Yeah. Yeah, the perception is everything. So, and that would make us more mindful of the Creator on a continuous basis. It's worship, it's surrender. And so when Jesus says to that lady, the time has come when you will not worship in the mountain or in Jerusalem. He was talking about worshiping the Father. Now this is the kicker. He says, you worship what you do not know. I wonder if he is talking about, when he talks to her, is he also talking to us? When you talk about traditional worship, Mark, you know, he said you worship, you know not what you worship, but we know what we worship. So is he talking about you have set your own rules of surrender? You do it the way that your doctrine teaches you to do it. Your hierarchy, they are the ones who determine what worship is, as opposed to that being determined by the worshiper himself. Can you see that? So when we look at it and start thinking about what we call a call to worship. So, but a call to worship does not carry with it the sense of a invitation to surrender. It has with it an invitation to be quiet and focus on me. Focus on everything that I'm getting ready to do. That's essentially what happens. So what Jesus is talking about is something totally different than that. And when he says that true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, this in itself brings us to the place to see that when the music, the words, the actions are simply just that, music, words, and actions. They are not precursors to worship as we say they are. They're not precursors at all, but they're there for entertainment value. And the reason it is there is because the hierarchy has not taken the time to find out what worship is. The idea of worship has been passed from generation to generation with no one stopping to ask the question, what is worship and how do we do this thing called worship? So as a result of that, we are no different than the lady who was at the well, who Jesus was telling, you don't know who you worship. You don't know even how to worship. Basically is what he's saying. Because when you think about it, do we know who we worship? You know, do we really know who we worship? Or do we know what we worship? Maybe it's a better term, as opposed to who. Because when we talk about we worship God, what is that? What is that? Most of the worship in the church is idolatry. Because if you look at it from Catholicism, it's the priest, the bread, the wine, the Pope. If you look at it from the Protestant perspective, it is the pastor, it is the communion table, all those little accoutrements that we use in what we call worship service. Those things are off limit. They're considered sacred. Are they not? So in essence, that becomes what? Idolatry. So do we really know who we worship? And do we really know how to do this thing called worship? Do we really know who we are surrendering to, or do we know how to surrender to this entity that we talk about surrendering to, that we call Father of Womb? Do we really know? Do we? And when I raise that rhetorically, but it does beg for an answer, and if on an individual basis, of course, because until we answer that, we won't begin the journey to finding out what we are indeed supposed to be worshiping. Right now, if we were to stand in the midst of a congregation, and we talk about the one who we worship is Avun, and what Avun means is cosmic energy, or the source of everything, of the universe, the source from which the universe came, the source of energy that gives all life to us. We would be called blasphemers.
True.
We'd be driven out, because that's not who we have been taught that the Father is. As a matter of fact, we have been taught that Father and God are interchangeable, and that is, it is so apparent in these verses that they are not interchangeable. Because one talks about when it says that God is spirit, they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Well, let me deal with that first. How do you worship in spirit and truth?
Let me just make a comment first.
Okay, go ahead.
The word peace in the Aramaic as well as in the Hebraic means, doesn't mean the absence of war, it means to surrender to, which is another word, which is what worship also means. It means to be delivered from. So peace means to be, it's sort of like be in balance, to be fulfilled or complete. And so when we worship and we surrender to, it's also an acknowledgement of who we are in relationship to the Creator. It's breathing in and understanding that balance between Creator and me, in a sense.
I can see that, and this may help if you were to read this from the Aramaic, when it said, "When the true worshiper shall worship, but the hour cometh and now is when the true worshiper shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth." How do you worship the Father in spirit and in truth?
The question is, what's spirit and then what's truth?
Right, breath, and what's truth? Truth is what? Traveling in the right direction, open to a circle, right? So could that actually, go ahead, Richard.
I was going to say, to me, it's just the prescription is to be open, as we say, without necessarily having such a specific or concrete definition, but just a sense of being open and connected to. And those other words, in spirit and in truth, are of yourself in as what? Integral or honest a manner that you can.
So it's open to other possibilities rather than any restricted ideas I have.
But if you tie that to sort of meditation, and what meditation is, it's kind of not trying to let yourself define that. And I think that's what we're inexperienced at, being open without characterizing it. Because the
So,
temptation comes after a few seconds even, like, okay, what am I doing?
right,
What am I open to? And now the back of your head's going, oh God, oh this, oh that.
yeah, so what's coming?
You're starting to pull all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you have to sort of find a way past.
So the
Around.
Aramaic could read, but the season is now, is here. When those seeking right direction, seeking to surrender rather, as they journey in the right direction, they must surrender to our womb by breathing and being open to all possibilities. Because that's what he seeks us to do. He desires us to do. Can you see that in that particular verse? So when we talk about being open, Sheldon, when we talk about being open to all possibilities, right? When we talk about being open to all possibilities, as like Richard said, we don't determine what those possibilities are. We don't think about those. Boy, you look cold.
He must have just.
How many layers you got on you?
I tell you, boy. I see two more.
Yeah.
But we when we are open to all possibilities by breathing, then, as Rich said, it is difficult not to determine what those possibilities are. We can't even, when you're open to all possibilities, you can't even consider what we have been calling worship is not worship. You don't consider that. You don't consider any. You breathe, cleansing yourself, refreshing yourself in preparation for whatever comes. For whatever comes. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because think about it this way. If you're excited or upset about something, what do people say? Breathe. Just stop and breathe. Take your time and breathe. Why? Because breathing calms you, breathing purifies, breathing brings you back to balance. And when we talk about just breathe so you can settle down, all we're talking about is being brought back into balance. That's what we're talking about. I suppose that if you feel yourself, all the thoughts from the back of your head coming forth, then you best breathe deeper and focus on the breath, where the air as it passes your top lip, how your diaphragm feels when you empty, that kind of thing, as opposed to those other thoughts about trying to mold and shape what the worship or what the possibilities are while we are surrendering. Because keep in mind, whatever you surrender to eventually guides your life. Whatever you surrender to. And that is a lot, that is the major reason, I would say, that we are so confused, because we have surrendered to confusion. Yes, sir.
So know what you're saying, Pastor, in the traditional church, the program should not exist. The program when you first come to the door, there you got the program.
Okay, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What I did, I challenged through my stint in association. I stood one day and challenged them. Take your program. In one of the classes I was teaching, I said, what I want you to do is take your program, your church program, and I want you to sit down with the scriptures, and I want you to go through that program and justify everything that's in it. And there were only 3 justifications found. Scripture and what?
Prayer,
Nope.
no?
Scripture, preaching, tithe and offering. Prayer is personal. Those are only three that were justified. The rest of it, the announcement, the sick list, you know, those things. And since I mentioned it, let me tell you this. The moment I got rid of a sick list, I stopped having people sick. I had been to the hospital with so little frequency until they retired my little badge that I had when I go in. They didn't know me. But prior to that, there was always somebody there. And if you got a sick list, somebody got to be on the list. And that's what you're drawing. But the moment I got rid of it, all that changed. So those are the things that have been guiding our lives, that program guides our lives. The whole concept of the songs that are rendered, if they are not in line with scriptures, they're guiding our lives in the wrong direction.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter how good they sound.
Yeah.
If they're not based in scripture, then they're leading us in the wrong direction, because that's what we are surrendering to. Everything that goes on from the time we cross that threshold until we leave and more are the things that we are surrendering to. So those are the things that have to be purged from us. But this is the thing. We are not supposed to be the ones who purge. We are not the ones who are supposed to separate the wheat from the tare.
Mm-hmm.
The word itself would do that. You know, the Father himself would do that. You don't. That's the reason I can't talk about what they do at St. Paul or Good Aim. What they do is what they do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not supposed to separate myself from them at all. And just maybe my presence and some of the conversations we have will enable them to be separated from some of the tare that is growing in the midst of the wheat. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, Shelley, we're talking about worship. You think, oh, look half asleep. So,
Let's get that New York attitude.
yeah.
Already.
Oh, yeah. Been that 2 minutes, right?
Well, is it going somewhere you don't want to go right now? Or for me, the two, I've had less trouble with worship, because when I used to go to Beulah Baptist with Audrey, I defined what it was to me when I entered into it. And I was quiet about it. I didn't want to cause any scene or whatever.
Yeah.
Say, you know, hey, what, why are we doing this or anything? I just decided to, whatever the word is, ignore, or just say, okay, fine, they're doing that, I'm doing this. Right? But the other part, for me, that was there was this notion of praise. I don't know if that's a whole separate thing, but to me, they're kind of, when you take them in the context of a traditional church, you have worship, you have praise, and that seems to be, if you strip away the other parts, those are the two basic, what I want to say, activities, actions, energies of that time that you're there in the church. So how do you distinguish the two? Or maybe at some time, I'd like to talk a little bit about the idea of praise.
Well,
I'm more comfortable with the idea of worship, as I define it, or as I am understanding it. Praise to me is... Huh?
How do you understand worship?
Well, I mean, worship to me is, as we've said, it's a quieter opening to, and so I can only worship as much as I let myself be open to what I feel I'm connecting with. Okay? And there's a certain faith that it's not junk, it's not something bad. There's some instinct that plays, I think, there. But it's quieter. I've never been impressed. Whether I came out of the Episcopal Church, a lot of that standing up, sitting down, and onward Christian soldier stuff to me was just, you know. Yeah, so
Just that, Uncle Christian Sullivan.
that was it. You know, it's a little too militaristic for me. But anyway, I wasn't gonna raise my hand, you know, but I just, you know, just sort of la 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 la, whatever you wanna call it, or just go to your own little space.
Yeah.
Worship like Cali now, la la la.
Worship is praise. The thing that we've done is we've included other machinations on top of that praise by saying, wave your hand, or you can only do it when you're singing, and all of the other stuff that we put on top of that, which is not not true. I mean, if worship is surrendering myself to the breath of the Creator, and I create the space to do that, and I do it in harmony with the universe, because the Creator is the universe, is the Creator, so we are all in oneness. That to me is praise.
Let me try it this way. I think see if I heard you right. Worship and praise are inseparable. In that, when you worship, you're surrendering, and when you praise, you're expressing adoration. So that praise is the expression of adoration. So in order for that adoration to be expressed, surrender has to take place also.
Yes.
And by virtue of your surrender, you express an adoration. So they're not interchangeable.
And you really can't adore unless you surrender.
That's right.
No, they're intertwined,
Right.
and maybe overlapping in that sense, but yeah, and traditionally the way you think of it is very external.
Right.
Right.
I
Right.
guess that's why, even as I grew up, I was, to be honest, disappointed that I had no problem when I was younger getting on my knees to say a prayer. Then as I got older, people sat in their chairs. And now maybe a variation is you might stand up,
Yeah.
but there was something humbling about getting on your knees.
Right.
And I don't mean being subservient to so much as if you're willing to do that in front of somebody else,
Right.
you're giving up something of you,
Ego.
your ego.
Yeah.
And that's why I really like the way, in Islam, the way the prayer is conducted. Now that can all be misused,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can be adoring and idolatry, all those things can apply. But the fundamental thing is, you're going to wash, be clean, and submit yourself, the ego of self, to this greater being, this greater understanding. And the fact that you have to do it, or even in meditation, you sit, it takes you out of your normal something.
So
The fact that churches have even gotten lazier about it, I've always felt was kind of disappointing. You know what I'm saying? It took you even farther, in my mind.
well, what happened is that they got to the place where you got to praise team, so now the rest of y'all don't have to do this. We're going to do this for you and bring you into it. When I don't feel like that. That's not where I am. This is what I see, that congregational bodies are there for the express purpose of being taught. Period. And the worship, the adoration, or the worship, the praise, etc. That's personal. You see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
That's personal.
Mm-hmm.
That can be sitting right there where you are now, or on your way here.
Mm-hmm.
That's how personal it is. But because men have not taken the time to understand what the sages of antiquity meant, or Sufis for that matter, meant when they talked about worship, because they're lazy, too lazy to look for an understanding of it. We began to add all of these external things to make us feel good and to make you feel like you belong to something that is separate from the rest of the world. So now you are in a position of superiority. Even though you talk about you're a servant to mankind, you're not really. You're only the servant to the people within that congregation. That's what it amounts to. And even within that congregation, you are only serving to certain people. And if you, and the only individual person that you are serving to is the one in that pulpit. So those kinds of things have lost the meaning by virtue, well, not lost, but the meaning has been covered by those all these other frills. So, but when I'm in a setting like as you described with Beulah, even at this point in my life, I see it as an opportunity to socialize with people I've not seen in a while.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that's, to me, that was always the fun part of going,
yeah,
right? And you go with a certain attitude to do that.
yeah.
Mhm.
So you're freed up to do that. But the other stuff to me just,
Yeah, you know, while you're sitting there trying to get to that part, it's like that's when you're like,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, look what people are doing. You can look at church and see what they're doing, you know? Fanning themselves, playing with things, looking at things.
Catch up with social things of what their week was like.
what you cooking
Anyway,
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
when the Samaritan woman was talking about our
I
Father's,
was tempted to ask for that word.
You already did. You just did.
I did.
You just did.
huh?
Huh? Right, yeah.
But anyway, so
Let me ask a question.
go ahead.
When the Samaritan woman was talking about our fathers worshipped on this mountain, and she was talking about the Samaritans, which is Mount Gerizim or something like that, because they had a shrine there.
Right.
And then she said, and you people say that the place where people must worship is in Jerusalem. She was talking more about physical locations.
Yeah.
And then Jesus took it the next step and translated that into, instead of an external location, that really it's an internal, not body, but it's not external, is what
Right.
he's saying. And so that's why he said our fathers worship in blah blah blah, but those who worship must worship in spirit and truth. And there is no location for that to be found except in your innermost sanctuary. Not the body, but
Yeah, the spiritual us.
spiritual sanctuary.
Yeah, I think it's notable also that it was a woman that he had this discussion with. When it was unheard of for a male to have a public discussion with a woman that was not his sister, his aunt, his mama, his wife, etc. The other thing I think is exceptional in that is the place where they were. The place of drawing water and talking about spiritual things, and water represents spirit. I think that's significant as well. The whole concept of her having many husbands and none was her own, I think that's also important. Not in terms of husbands walking down the aisle or somebody pronounce you man and wife type thing, as much as it is you sought the seed of understanding or the seed of worship from many different places, and none of those places were suitable for what you were looking for. And the reason I say that is because after Jesus ended the conversation with her, she went to come see a man who told me all about me. In other words, who planted a seed in me that no one else could have done. Changing the direction of it all, which says again that the feminine must be put in the right, be kept in the right, seen in the, from the right manner, and treated in the right manner in order for us to be able to move beyond where we are and get out of this ball of confusion that we that has engulfed us. It has to be that way, and when we talk about that, you can't go too far to the point where one is dominating the other. It's all about balance. It's all about balance. Even if it appears that one is doing more than the other, if the other is not capable of doing it, it's still balance. You can't do more than I can if you're doing all you can.
Right. That makes sense.
So it is always balance, regardless. You know, when you say, well, you take the high road, all this in is bring balance. You be the one to bring the balance if nobody else will. So, when Jesus talked about, Barbara, you see anything else there before I move forward?
No.
Okay, when Jesus talks about, in verse 22, well, we've been there. Look at the two verses, look at 23 and 24. It says, it's talking about the Father, worship the Father in spirit and in truth. Then it says, God is spirit. You see? But it says, Alaka, is the spirit, is not there. So, God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So what's the difference between worshiping the Father in spirit and in truth? It says, for the Father seeketh such, but it says God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spiritual truth. What's the difference between God and Father?
What verse are you in?
23 and 24 of John, 4th chapter of John. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm. That's what he's talking about.
What is the distinction there? Is it possible that Jesus is also talking about making reference to the higher self being spirit, just as the Father is, and the human must surrender to the spirit that he is, and must do it the same way that he does it to the Father. In other words, what I'm saying is he admonishing us to submit to the spiritual essence that we are, in order for us to be able to be submissive or to surrender to the Father who brought all of us into being. Okay, does that make sense?
Is that a yes or no question?
Yeah.
Huh?
Is that a yes or no question?
It's a question begging for help in that.
You need a witness?
Okay, that good name, man.
Right.
Is he saying that? It appears to me that that's what's happening here. That he's virtually telling you how the Father is to be worshipped, but also telling you you can't get to that place of surrender until you surrender to who you are.
Mm.
When you surrender to who you are, when you surrender to the breath that you are, without labeling it or characterization, it is being open to all possibilities. That is when you're able to surrender to the Father and become familiar with those possibilities that you're open to, and those possibilities comes from the Father.
So how do you surrender to yourself? Or did I miss it?
I talked about that. You surrender to yourself by breathing and by being open to whatever possibility. For example, if you are, we talk about being true to thyself,
Mm-hmm.
that's surrendering to yourself. If you surrender to yourself, you're breathing, you know what, I desire to be who I am, and something comes up in you that you haven't dealt with, you need to deal with it.
Okay.
You see, now you are being true to who you are. You are opening yourself up to possibilities because you are not denying the humanness that has brought you to the place where you are. Your humanity that has brought you to that place. You are actually dealing with it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So there's all kinds of issues that's between us and the place of light and surrender that we need to deal with. Because I think that's what happened to Jesus when he went into the wilderness. The wilderness was not him going into a wilderness physically as much as it was him going into his personal wilderness and dealing with his personal issues. And his personal issues being such, like if you surrender to the essence of greed, then you can have everything in the world that you want. He had to deal with those issues that he had to face, and that's where we are. and rather than denying that they're there. And the other part of it is this: if it's pointed out by someone and you get angry, it's true.
Yeah,
Because if it were not, you wouldn't be upset.
right.
Yeah, it's true. So the best thing to do about that is, you know what, take the anger, upset, or whatever it is you call it, and go home and say, you know what, I ain't like that, but I gotta deal with it. That's how we are mirrors to each other,
Yeah.
by virtue of pointing out those kinds of things. But it is also a tactful way to do it.
Yes.
Any questions about that? And keep in mind now, it keeps talking about the woman. It doesn't give her what we call the proper name. It's the woman. The feminine energy is what Jesus is dealing with. Jesus is dealing with this feminine energy at a place.
So sorry.
Jesus is dealing with this feminine energy at a place in the earth where water is drawn. You know, water is a necessity for life. So this is where he's dealing with it, with this feminine energy, and this is one of the things that also has pointed out, that she or this feminine energy, having been in exile in the earth, recognizes something. What she recognizes is him being Messiah. Now, I don't understand why they use Messiah twice here. Because it says, a woman says unto him, I know that Messiah cometh, which is called Messiah. Because it said, which is called Christ. The Messiah is used twice there. I don't know why it's used that way. But the thing is, the feminine energy recognizes what's going on here. Look at when Jesus said that deliverance is of the Jews, and then she recognized with the accent of Judeans. If she recognized that, then she says, I know that, the woman says, I know that Messiah cometh, which is called Christ, or which is called Messiah. Messiah is the one who delivers. So she's expressing, she's acknowledging that she's in the presence of the essence of deliverance. And the question is, with her making that statement, what is she talking about being delivered from? Self. See, and that's another place where we miss it, where we have missed it, and we have to move from that place. It's stuck in us subconsciously, and we have to move from that. The deliverance is from the 7 cardinal sins, cardinal sins. The deliverance is from whatever we decide that you should not be doing. That's what the deliverance is from. The deliverance is personal also. I can't determine whether or not you've been delivered. That's personal. Bob, you
Just the source. The source that I have says that it's used twice because the author put in a parenthetical, in a sense, of the second one. One called Christ.
Yeah. Okay, I got
So
you. Yeah.
it's parenthetical,
And what is parenthetical?
meaning Messiah, and then you put parentheses, the one called Christ.
The one called
Okay,
Christ,
got you. And what is Messiah again, Pastor?
One who delivers.
What's the difference in Jesus and then
Well,
Messiah?
the anointed. Anointed breaks yokes, destroys. What is it? Break yokes and destroys. That's burdens.
Bricks.
Destroys.
You feel like bricks sometimes.
Yeah, but that's what the anointing does.
So say it,
Destroy
Messiah
burdens.
means what again?
It breaks yokes and destroys, lift burdens.
Okay.
Now that's what it does. So that's deliverance also.
Yeah.
So when it talks about Messiah, Jesus is the one who did that. Yeshua, Yahweh, the essence of Yahweh delivering, or the Yahweh who delivers. So So she's saying that Messiah would tell them all things. And what does Jesus say? That's who I am. That's the essence. That's who I am. Hear this now. He basically telling her that's who I am is. You get that? I am is Messiah. The I am, Ani, is Messiah. I am is the one who delivers. And how do you become I am? How do you, when you come, Ani means the little I connected to the big I. My breath in unity with the breath of a womb, the Father. That's the Father is the big I am, and I am the little I am. And when I recognize that the big I am and the little I am are connected, are one, there's a oneness between us, then I become the deliverer. So I am becomes the deliverer.
So is he showing us how we can deliver ourselves?
Yes.
Sure.
How we can take
Exactly.
it down? Okay.
Exactly. So the major thing here, I think, is these last three verses that we've talked about, where it talks, when we talked about, well, actually the fourth, we talked about Father and God and Messiah. Those I am. Those are the four major things in here that helps us to move from the place of just being human. It moves us from dying as princes, but being Elohim that we were created to be. That's what it shows us. It's telling us how to do that. And I said this 1,000 times. I said again, anyone who says that the Old Testament is not necessary is crazy. Because there was no New Testament when Jesus was talking. Only thing he was making reference to was what we call the Old Testament. So what he's saying, what he's doing is showing us how to be what he talked about, what was spoken of rather, in the 82nd Psalm. I see that you're God. He's showing us how to do that. And the New Testament primarily shows us primarily how to do what the Old Testament shows us we are.
Maybe they feel like that because it's in the new, what Jesus said is in the New Testament
in the
book.
red,
In the
yeah,
book, it's in the
yeah.
red.
Well, and that's the whole thing. That's another thing when I talked about idolatry earlier.
Uh-huh.
We also surrender to the book.
Mm-hmm.
Not what's in it.
Right.
We worship the book. We don't know what's in it, but we just worship because this is it. We worship the Bible, and Bible simply means books. That's all. Mm-hmm. Hey, there's nothing sacred about Bible, that word, but that's what we worship, as opposed to knowing what's in it. So I guess to sum it up, or at least try to, or to put it all together, it took the feminine energy, the masculine energy that Jesus is, and the feminine energy of this woman at the well, in order for him to bring to the surface the journey that we have to take in order for us to come to the realization that we are one with the Father, and to show us how to come to that realization. And it goes all the way back to when it said, I will make thee a helpmeet, and helpmeet means to surround, and the feminine energy surround the seed, but that was changed. In the masculine energy surrounded the masculine by virtue of making all decisions about everything and casting the feminine, the female to the side with having no input at all. Now it's come full circle where Jesus is recognizing the feminine not only here but in other areas as well. When Mary washes his feet. When she shows up at the tomb, or even prior to the tomb, when she shows up in the upper room at the Last Supper, and he is re-establishing the foundation for everything that is, and by saying, in order for stability to take place from a spiritual perspective, we have to have balance between the masculine and the feminine, and so when we talk about in order that we have to be holy because God is holy, is that what the scripture says? What he's talking about is separate for a specific purpose. That's what he's talking about. Because we are, in actuality, we are separated for a specific purpose because we are Elohim. And that is to bring mankind to the place where mankind realizes who he was created to be. Questions?
Yeah, I got part of what you said, and then I got caught up in thinking, and then I lost it. So can you help me find it?
Which part you got?
The masculine energy that Jesus was, and the feminine energy that the woman was brought to the surface or revealed. The journey that we have to take in knowing
who we are. Yeah. In order for us not only to know who we are, but how to travel the journey of being who we are. Because see, we can know who we are, lip service.
Yeah.
But the journey determines. As George said, the desire is in the pursuit.
Mm-hmm.
If you desire it, you pursue it.
Yes.
So the acknowledgement is actually in the journey, and that is one of the reasons it's so irritating sometimes to hear people call themselves Christians when they don't have a clue of what that means. And then to have someone to tell them that the believers were first called Christians at Antioch, well, that's not true. It says the disciples were called Christians at Antioch. It doesn't say anything about the believers. The believers are the one who called them that. So it's quite irritating because not only because they're telling them something wrong, but also because people don't know what it means when you say you're a Christian. It doesn't mean you're a member of the church.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that you're going to heaven. If you know what Christian means, then you realize that you are heaven. That you are light. Shemayim. That's who you are. And when someone says that, it's almost like scratching on a board. Because if you tell them, what you're actually saying is that you are Messiah. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. But you say you Christ-like. You Messiah-like. You like the Messiah. The confusion is so deeply embedded until I believe that most people are more comfortable with the confusion
Like a
than
splinter.
they are with the truth.
The question I have also is why he said in spirit and in truth. If spirit is truth in a sense. And when I looked it up, truth is feminine. But I couldn't find the
Spirit.
spirit. It says is neuter. But I haven't gone back.
Mhm.
So it's almost like the way it's said is revealed in the manifested physical man, woman, but the spiritual behind it is also feminine energy, as you said, and masculine energy, simply because it separates. It doesn't separate it, but it says and spirit and truth. I don't know if I'm making sense or not. It's
Why does it separate the two?
that plus the one fact that one has its basis in as a feminine word, truth, and spirit.
Well, I know the feminine truth. The reason feminine truth is like the opening of a circle. It's a womb, and it is a journey into the womb that brings forth the truth itself, or light.
And spirit is sort of like that seed, so that could be perceived to be that masculine. My only point is, he says to the woman, must worship in spirit and in truth, which further substantiates what you said about the balance that needs to occur between masculine and feminine.
It's almost like the
type
spirit
energies.
could be what it needs to be. The I am
Yes.
can be what it needs to be at the time. At that point, it needed to be seed. And it was expressed as seed in relationship to the womb of truth. If you breathe into, then the breath is the seed, and whatever you breathe into is the womb. So when we talk about at any point, we can either be masculine or feminine, depending on whether you're receiving or giving.
But that's an even deeper truth than, I mean, just looking at it that way. That the breath that's breathed into is the seed, and the universe is the womb.
Yeah.
Which means that even says we can create by what we intend.
Right. And that kind of, if we could wrap our mind around that, you're talking about creating a world to live in. If you can, when you think about a womb, which can be masculine or feminine, and it means father or mother, depending on connotation, which also is in keeping with what we're talking about, the being masculine, feminine at any point. We lend too much credence to the physical manifestations rather than to the spiritual realities. Because the physical manifestation is like woman, man. But the spiritual reality is we're both. We're both. One may be dominant in me and another dominant in you. So that's why it manifests itself as a physical female. What is it, Richard? You got regular?
No, I just can't get past, I couldn't quite reconcile Barbara's question. What's the first part? To worship in spirit and in truth?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I get the truth part, but I can't quite make the spirit fit.
I really read it originally this way. The way I read it was that they that worship him must worship in spiritual truth.
Okay.
That's how I've
Well,
been
see,
rendering it
I
for
would
years.
turn around what I mean by fit. To me, it's worship in truth to realize spirit, but that's maybe not the same meaning there. So truth is a way to
But
reveal
and-
spirit.
But it says, I am the way, the truth, and the light. So spirit, I am is spirit.
yeah. I am a spirit. The spirit is the journey, which is weight, right? And spirit is truth, which is the right direction or the opening, right?
Mhm.
And spirit is also the life energy that's necessary to travel this journey in order to choose the right direction.
So then spirit isn't the end of it, isn't the pot of gold at the end. It isn't the realization of, the culmination of where the journey takes you. It's a characterization
It's the journey.
of the process of what the quality of the journey contains. Which,
The journey itself is
that's
spirit.
not good, I mean, I didn't say that well, but
Yeah.
yeah, so spirit is what gets you there.
What gets you there, and it is.
If your understanding of spirit is worshiping in truth, I mean, that's why I'm trying to put the words on the refrigerator in the right order.
Make them fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, just
But, and what I'm saying is that that spirit is all of that. It's way, it's truth, it's life. But it's not only the journey, but it is also the energy that you receive to travel the journey. And it is also, when you come to a fork in the road, this energy that gives you the strength to travel the journey also guides you in the right direction.
yeah, but yeah. So if you
I'm waiting.
that's why
He deferred to you.
I kind of see it as two things, but two things that sort of fit together.
Yeah.
Because isn't truth like an essence, a knowing?
The
something like
vertical
that?
essence of everything that is us.
So, in order to connect to that spiritual part of you, you have to come to it through truth. Yes?
Yes.
So I see it as two parts of an
You raised the same.
interconnecting kind of thing.
Okay. Shelley, you want to respond?
what do they say
Yeah,
up there?
that's kind of how I actually saw it, as well as the spirit actually being the reality of all that exists, and then the truth being that understanding that the woman at the well actually, I guess that explains the truth is actually what took place with her when all of a sudden she came to the realization through Christ of what everything was, of being aware of this spirit, almost being able to see God in everything and in every event, so to speak.
Or seeing the cosmic energy and everything that is.
Mm-hmm. You know,
Yeah.
all of a sudden that every little thing turning into something other than just an inadequate, some, just object or whatever, or just some little small event, you see the miracle in it. You see the amazement in it.
Okay. So you said, what are you saying? Seeing the essence of the source of all things and everything that is.
Mm-hmm. And almost as if the truth is there, kind of, but it's more so, I guess, of an action of awakening and your third eye opening, I guess you would say.
Yeah,
I think in truth.
yeah, if the truth is going to set you free.
It doesn't say that.
No, I mean,
It says make you free, which is a totally different meaning.
okay, make you free is better, maybe.
Yeah.
The way I play with what Sheldon was saying and try to reconcile with Barb was truth reveals or makes you aware of what is contained in spirit, and then that's, it's not a good word, but that's the essence or optic by which you understand life.
I follow what you're saying, but the issue is spirit is there before truth. It's just that we are not aware of
Yeah.
the spirit that we are until we apprehend or
Yeah.
Right.
make ourselves
Truth reveals.
open to
True.
the fact that spirit is in all and is all.
Right, but then again, spirit isn't the end of the journey from the perspective of spiritual understanding, let's say. Now you can view everything more correctly, more
Right.
truthfully, more,
More clearly.
Openly more.
well, the word, what it really is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's,
You
so
see
we
the
have
real
the phrase in
substance.
spirit, you know, right?
You see the real substance of what he is.
So it's like the optic through which now you see everything. And the truth there
Well, I
is-
can see that because when you
well,
said
I don't like that because it means it's
the truth will make
separation.
you free, right? Make means to mold or to shape.
Mhm.
It shapes you so you can be or know how to be free. And free is not the absence of bondage as much as it is the awareness of the obstacles that beset you.
But to me, even if by what you just said, free could be creating the space which then has to be filled. What's it
Right.
filled with? If it's filled with what is the essence that we call spirit, now you have the understanding to go forward, so to speak.
And I actually see spirit as the beginning, the end, everything in between, no matter what it is. Everything is spirit. And the reason I say that is because nothing exists without breath, without spirit. Nothing exists without that. Everything that came into being because of breath. Even if it says, and you spoke and it came into being, you don't speak without breath. So
I'm not arguing with that. I think we're trying to just find words and logic to explain how you get to that realization. The fact that, I mean, what's the other expression we always say? Just because you don't believe it doesn't mean it's not true, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So just because you don't sense it, feel it,
Yeah.
you're not connected with it, doesn't mean spirit isn't everything. It isn't
Yeah.
there. But the question is, how do you get that aha?
And Jesus said, this is where you get the aha. By recognizing the spiritual, by submitting and to the spiritual truth that you are. That's how you get it, because you are Elohim. You recognize that, you accept that, you acknowledge that, and you don't acknowledge that until you submit to it. So that's how you get to that place, I guess. And again, we probably gonna come out here again and again. Okay, go ahead.
It's kind of like the whole, for another example, the whole chicken and an eagle, or turkey and an eagle, whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
Chicken is an eagle.
you have to change your mindset. So when you know you're Elohim, everything begins to change and you begin to view everything differently. One day, Ron and I were talking about some things after foundation, and I was asking Ron, I was like, what if everyone thought and actually lived their life 100% knowing that they were Jesus or they were God and that they were responsible for every single thing that took place. It was no one else but themselves, so to speak, as for being in that role. Then their behaviors and their thoughts would be totally different. So, I mean, it's in a way, he's telling you how to get there, but of course, you have to get there yourself.
No one, see, that's it. No one, you can't travel the journey the way I travel it. And I can't travel the way you do. Our experiences are different. And our thoughts are different. Everything about us is different. But the journey must be traveled. If we are to be one with the Father, or I am.
But, yeah, I guess I've always had that understanding, which is why I really appreciated an article, a little essay I read years and years ago. I think I still have the book. But a guy who basically said that Jesus was the first revolutionary. The essence of his message was anarchy in the classic sense.
I read that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. I remember that when you said that, the first revolutionary, and when they called him an anarchist. I read that. Because he did turn everything upside down.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically saying it's the most, in a certain sense, the most communist thing you could say.
Yeah.
There's no need for power structure. There's no need for power and structure. There's no need for control, right? I mean, in a perverted way, it's what they try to pretend a free market. Oh,
Yeah.
people really pervert it right and left, but that's basically what his message. It's like saying if everybody was mature, you wouldn't have all this immature behavior. And you wouldn't need this, you wouldn't need the structures you need because everybody's so immature
Yeah.
to keep them under control and headed in a certain direction so they don't self-destruct.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Okay. Any questions about that? Okay.
I have a question about something else.
Okay, what is it?
You're about to end or something? Okay. How effective is chain letters?
another New York question.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
him.
Okay. Go him. Kurt,
Yes, Pete. Before we move on to the chain letters,
I love you.
no. It's just that right quick. We definitely can come back to the chain letters. Later on in what verse was that? Oh, the 28th verse it says, the woman then left her water jug and went away to the city and said to the men. In another version, so the woman left her water pot and went into the city and said to the men. Well, the water pot deals with, is it allegorically that which refreshes and keeps alive the soul is likened to water. So I thought it was significant that that which she had to use that was physical to refresh and keep alive her soul was actually, she no longer needed that because of this transformation that took place with spirit and truth.
You know what is significant there?
What's that?
She went her way. She went on her journey, right? Into the city, and she says to the men, it's pretty much the same thing as the woman being there at the tomb.
Mm-hmm.
She said to the men were dead because they were living from the same thing she was living from, the superficial.
Oh.
So,
Well, I think she did connect to the truth and spirit because she went to the men.
right.
That wasn't culturally done.
Acceptable, that's right. And that, and it did not say she went to amen, it said men.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's still talking about the feminine revitalizing the masculine.
Yeah,
That's what it's talking about.
it's the men to me.
Yeah.
It's the the male, we said in here so many ways, aspect dominates or tends to overtake the feminine, and there's that imbalance, significant imbalance, then it is what brings confusion, destruction, etc. And I think the fact that you could take on the physical level, the fact that she could go and speak to men now, she had no sense of
Fear.
a particular place or inferiority or anything like that. She was going in truth.
She transcended culture.
She was going in truth.
Well, and then the
She
men,
might have gotten in trouble.
They listened.
then the men listened.
Yeah.
They didn't say, "Get out of here." You.
I think that's
Slut
probably the
or
profound
whatever.
part of the phrase.
They listened.
To me, that's the most revealing part of the phrase.
Yeah, I mean, because they left and went to him. They
Right.
actually listened to a woman. Could you believe it?
And that kind of
Yeah,
woman.
yeah. Could you believe it?
Never happened
And there
since.
I said it.
No. Or either that, or we've been listening ever since.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
I looked at you.
Listening, but
No,
I
you don't have to.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I'm hearing.
Oh, yeah. We hear that all the time, too.
Richard.
But and that's very significant. Though. Very significant.
Thanks, Sheldon. Can I do my chain letter thing now?
Are they
Let him expound, please, on what
You
you
got
just
some
said, the
else?
latter part,
on what?
how significant it is listening.
Who? Sheldon? How's
No, you.
Me? Oh, listen. I don't know how to expound on that other than expressing. I think all of us know the importance of listening. You know, listen when it says that "Be still, and know that I am God." The word "still" means to listen.
I have a question.
She lives.
Okay.
Your face is not moving.
Well, you're talking about men and women, so I wanted to ask about the recent decision to make allow women into combat situations.
Okay, what
And
about
how that ties into place and position and, you know.
Yeah.
And formalized.
I don't know. I think that it's not done. The intent of it is to bring equality, which I think is wrong. Because equality is not you being able to do exactly what I do. Equality is me respecting what you do and you respecting what I do. And whatever we are capable of doing, we do it to the best of our ability, and I respect that.
Mhm.
So the intent, I think, is not what it should have been.
Right.
But
I see it a little differently.
I was about to say, even if the intent is ignorant of what equality really is, I mean, or even if that person is intent of what, Lord have mercy, if they're ignorant of what true equality is, but their intent is for equality, you know, if they see that as somehow, you know, less than, isn't the intent good in that sense? I mean, they're trying to, I guess, give women something that...
Well, let's back up and see why they didn't put women in combat in the first place.
Distraction, I don't know.
Rape.
Yeah.
Get captured and rape them.
That's always the male argument.
Yeah.
They rape them
But I'm
anyway, even
telling
if they're
you-
not in combat.
No.
They're getting raped by
No,
their...
it's if they're captured.
I'm not saying they don't. I say it. Let's look at the reason
Okay.
they gave for not doing it in the first place.
Yeah.
Did I not say that?
Yes.
That's the reason they gave. The primary reason they gave was that the enemy go capture you and go rape you.
Okay.
That was the primary reason it was given.
Which,
But I'm looking at it in a broad picture than that. Because if you're talking about in combat, with me as a woman in combat and following stuff, even if you get captured, if you talk about the essence of being tortured and all of that, I mean, the torture that there's to do is brutal. So, and even if I'm talking about the man, well, it was a discussion the other day about the makeup of a woman versus a man, the strength that's evident is in a man versus with a woman. With me, and I'm looking at all of that, as a woman, I don't feel I need to prove, because a lot of women they say prove that I can do anything as you do. I don't want to get out there and say I can lift
Yeah.
all of us like you do, or I can lift this and assemble and put it together.
I can be much of a man.
Yeah, I can
as
be
you
much
do.
of a man as you, because I'm not a man. I wasn't created for that. So I don't feel, for me as a woman, I don't feel as though I have to do everything you do, be on the front line, take a bullet just to prove
Yeah, I mean,
that I can do what you do. So for me, I think it's somewhere in the makeup of the whole thing of losing the essence of what I'm here for. To get caught up in the whole thing of the femininity, the feminine movement or whatever, that my rights to prove that I can do the same thing that you do. I feel for me that's the caught up, and even with some of the women that I hear say, it was an interesting conversation I heard a woman say the other day, and for me I was like, that's on a totally different level. She was like, she was glad it was lifted because what she was saying in the military, women don't get to move up in ranks, that it's a men thing. Okay, moving up in rank, that's totally different because those are officers. They're not on the front line. Majority of them, some of them, okay, excuse me. A lot of them are not on the front line.
Yeah,
So-
but being in combat is part of the one of the, like they look at what you have in your resume, and being in combat, it's part of what they look for in those people that move up the ranks.
Yeah, that's the way I see it right now. I listened to the words of who's the congresswoman who lost her legs. She said it. It's the only way, given the way the structure now is in the military, that women can have the recognition they deserve for what they contribute to the military effort. They said in smaller language. She's not going to be like what's her name was in the movie when she played the Delta Force person 5-10 years ago. The one tough thing.
G.I. Jane.
She's G.I. Jane, whatever it was. That standard hasn't changed, and you still have to qualify to be a Delta Force person. Let's put it that way. That's the most romantic thing, unfortunately, we have. But the other thing no one realizes in the military, and I don't fully because I'm not in it, and I don't talk to people on active duty, how the structure of the military has changed. So the whole functional military now is much more on what your strengths and qualities are and how to meld that into the kind of unit that needs to be organized to accomplish the mission, where women can very much be a part of that. But I think I leave it at that simple explanation that there's no way for them. You're never going to have a chief of staff who's a woman of the Army until you allow officially women into combat. So they are already in combat environments. It doesn't mean they have to be leading an infantry, battalion or something, but it's recognizing the contribution, and I think it's opening the way to try to let them reach higher rank.
Okay.
Now, there may be other issues that are going to come out of that, because, you can't
Now,
climb tall buildings the same way guys can, or physically. But understand something in combat, too. A lot of these big guys who are big, husky guys, they don't make the best soldiers all the time. It depends on what the mission requires. But sometimes it's that skinny little guy who's the one who keeps everybody alive. Right? So
my thing is this, the whole concept of it, women have always been in combat. In combat situations. How did Duckworth lose her legs? She was flying a Black Hawk. This colonel, female colonel, was medevacing people out of the area, and she got shot. So if you any place where an enemy can shoot you, you're in combat. The only difference is that they were not sending them out on patrols. But as far as other combat situations, they're there, and they've been there. So, how do I feel about the whole, the whole situation? I would rather not my woman be in combat. I would rather not my woman even be a policeman. That's my feeling about it. Because I don't want my woman coming in the house with a black eye that some dude gave her, and with a 38 on her hip, and she all upset with him, and now I got to bear that. I don't want that any more than she would want me doing it. I do believe that, and jump on me if you want, I believe that there are roles for men and there are roles for women. Yes. I believe that there are things that men are structured to do, and there are things that women are structured to do. One of the things that comes to mind is this: women, the pelvis is not built to play basketball, but they play anyway. That's why they have more injuries, especially knee injuries, than males do, because they're anatomically, they're not built to make the moves that you have to make in basketball, and that's been proven. But they still do it. So
they play a better game than men.
So they may, but the injuries are still there.
No, the rules are different.
But what I'm saying is that that's how I feel. I would not want Phoebe in combat. I would not want Molly, Kakishi, Money, or Neek in combat.
But couldn't you see this as an evolution to the? I agree with you, but until women are recognized, the feminine perspective and energy, or don't think of women, think of the feminine, whatever.
Okay.
Until that's recognized as being a needed and valued part of the whole that a police person or something needs to be, you're not going to be able to configure, let's say, the police force the right way and give due recognition for the contributions. I think that's what this is an attempt toward. It's full of these kind of.
I believe that feminine energy can influence from a different place.
Yeah, but we're not. But that.
And then you have what, 9 other armies that have women.
That would be great. Like if society were could work like that. But I feel like it's already like part of the process of it moving towards a place where women can be in those roles and be respected is going through this process.
But see, I think there's a more fundamental problem here that we don't have the courage to address. We're still very adolescent. It's the same thing with gun control. It's violence.
Yeah.
We're a very militaristic and violent culture, and where you're going to place women in that is a short-term consideration. The bigger question is You know, what does a police force mean? What is protect and serve the community's needs supposed to mean? We're not really asking those questions. Can we fit a woman into a man's uniform and put a gun on her hip, and then, like, whatever her name is, Lopez in the movie, she knows how to go around and deck guys on the street. I mean, that's, you know, that's... It's not looking at it in the way that I think by bringing the female in, you can change the understanding of what that function is.
Of what policing is.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And I'm saying it's not gonna happen. Females have been policemen for years, and policing has not changed. It's that
No, I'm not-
they've become more
Going the other way.
they've become more
Yeah.
than ever before. That you have a blue uniform, but you have a soldier in it.
Yeah.
They have the same weapons. They have the same tactical training.
Many times it is an ex-soldier.
Of course.
I don't understand how saying women shouldn't be policemen
I didn't say
or
that.
women
I
shouldn't
said,
be in
man,
combat.
woman.
No, I understand, and I feel like it's the same thing with, you know, I wouldn't choose to have an abortion. I don't even know. It probably depends on the situation, right? But that's typically the attitude that I take whenever I'm dealing with some, you know, talking about that particular issue. Would I set the laws according to how I feel about the situation? No. I feel like society. That's somebody else's choice. Like, why would you say that? I don't understand how you'd say, like, our society should be structured a certain way because we feel like that's how women.
Didn't say that.
I'm
I know
struggling.
my woman doing
Yeah, so what does that have to do with scripture and
it. I'm saying,
femininity
okay,
and, like, spirituality
I
and truth?
choose to protect the feminine energy and treat it the way it's supposed to be treated. I don't need my feminine energy to be on the police force or carry a gun in order for her to be brought to a place of respect.
So how do we extrapolate that into the broader sense, like beyond James Richard?
Beyond James Richard, my desire is for all men to feel the same way.
Well, I would agree with what you just said, though. If this is being done because it's a way that even women feel they have to, where they have to go to get the respect they're owed, then that's
wrong.
That's not a solution.
That's wrong.
That's not a solution. I don't need a boss that's more macho than a guy. And I've worked for a couple of women who are great, and a couple who were, if they were guys, they'd be in deep trouble. I mean, you know.
But you know,
So
there is so much light now available, and it shines on those who are aware and are at certain varying levels of awareness. And just like gays were in the closet for so long, that the light has shined, and they are not they don't feel the need necessarily to be in the closet. And what I'm saying is not that it's part of the journey. It's part of what has to happen to bring us to a different level of awareness. And women in these roles, whether we would like it or not, is part of the journey of the universe getting to the point of awareness that, hey, I've got to be protective of what this womb does, in that whatever seed I place in it, it nourishes, blah, blah, blah. So, but it's just part of the journey. And there may be some atrocities that occur as a result of this, which bring people to a different plane of thinking.
It obviously is part of the journey because it's happening.
Yeah.
But if the desire that femininity had the respect that it's supposed to have was intact, that part of the journey would be necessary.
Agreed.
But so I agree that
And
the journey.
if feminine energy understood its role, it would not be espousing some of the. But that's.
I mean,
I think you say the same thing for masculine too.
masculine.
Agreed.
I think we've been running over a
crazy.
little bit here too.
Well,
We're not mean, dirty, filthy.
Well,
We want to go out and kill and maim. There's
Master-
something wrong if that's
And I agree with that. But I'm saying that if the masculine energy was in the place it's supposed to be, feminine is supposed to be, then that we wouldn't have to do any of this.
But the question, I guess, to
But
go back
it's
to Brenda,
there.
is that the intent of this decision? To move more so in that direction, to reveal more?
I think that's the intent of the cosmos. To the creator to move in that direction, to reveal more. Let me show you something. This week, I'm sitting, I'm thinking, okay, why is it that these men, these wealthy Republican white men, don't want abortion and don't want birth control?
Yeah.
Why? You know why? Because the population is decreasing. Birth rate is decreasing. That's why they don't want abortion, and that's why they don't want birth control. Because it would make sense that if you don't want abortions, then do some contraceptive stuff. But they don't want that either, because the population is decreasing.
Are you sure it's not just about control?
Yeah, I'm
Because that
more
seems like
cynical.
a simpler.
Yeah, but they don't
I'm
want,
more
they don't
cynical.
want immigrants and blacks either, so.
Yeah, they
But
do.
the population,
Yeah, they do.
the population, the
Certain
population,
population to be brown.
They do, as long as they're in that factory upside the other
Yeah.
road. I mean, come on, they're mowing your grass. I mean, I don't think it's because the population's going around. I think they
They
know.
don't want the population to be
It's-
more brown.
Why are they gerrymandering now with all, and now we want to go do away with the electoral college, which I kind of agree with, but not this way,
yeah.
so that Romney would have won. It's a matter of control and all that, so it's more complicated than that.
The women in the military are more complicated than that. I think we'll be shocked and amazed if we were to read the memorandum that was sent prior to this happening. I guarantee you that there's a justification for it that is far beyond anything we ever thought of, but at the same time has absolutely nothing to do with equality, but everything to do with politics and the economy. I guarantee you that that's where it is.
Oh, like they're running out of people or something?
Politics and the economy. Well, wars are not fought the way they once were.
Yeah.
There is no front line. You know, the tactics that we learn are obsolete now. It's different, totally different. So you know, I was like livid when one of my cousins, Tina, had to go to Afghanistan, and she was at a forward base, but the tactics are so different until no matter where you are. Right now, we're in the combat zone. You know, so you don't determine a combat zone by geographical location anymore. So it's totally different. It's different. So,
Yeah, not if you can
but anyway,
operate that drone from North Dakota.
from Massachusetts, your chain leathers. Chain leathers are effective as you want them to be. I don't fool with chain leather because they are a distraction. That's
But
a nice
isn't
way to
it,
put
doesn't it have, it's got to be some, I mean,
Let me tell you something. Most chains leather tell you what God go give you materially. If you do this, God go give you a car. Send this to 18 friends and you go get a car next week. Then you send it to 18 friends and you don't get nothing. You know,
yeah, and I don't pay them any attention, but
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, why is it that they feel that they need to forward this to Susie and
because they've
20
been
other
taught.
friends?
They've been taught to share. to share what they have learned at their church. And to share the blessings of the Lord. They've been taught that. They've been taught, they've been told that, and these blessings will overtake you, right? Overtake you means something caught you and you weren't expecting it.
I feel that
It's
it's
lazier than
something,
knocking on your door.
no, and maybe I'm looking into it a little too much, but as above, so below, right? So my thing is, I think it's more deeper than what it appears to be. Although they've been taught that you're gonna get something in return, it's material. But why do I feel? Well, I don't know.
It's
I
religious.
have hey, this is Ring. I have a point with that. I got a chain letter once from Mom. She doesn't send them much.
Call me out.
I know.
You know, there's one or two she really likes, but she sent something. I really liked what it said, but I didn't want to send the letter. So what I did was I posted what was said in the letter as a status on my Facebook. So that way I wasn't like sending a chain letter, but I was still sharing that truth. And anyone who chose to read it could, and chose to comment could. So I don't know, I felt like that was better in that I wasn't sending a chain letter, but I was still sharing the information, which I think is what you're kind of getting to.
It's chain letters to me, or the electronic version of Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on your door. To me, that's what it is.
I mean, to me, if somebody sent you
'Cause
something
think about
and you were touched by it,
That's
why
one
can't I
thing.
tell my friends, hey, read this?
But
But
this is the
a
thing.
chain concept?
No,
What's that?
no.
What's that?
I'll tell you, but why do I tell you to send to 18 friends?
Yeah.
That's your choice. The other thing is,
Why 18?
if chain letters were so important, how come they didn't come when you had to buy stamps?
I missed that.
They were there.
They,
Oh no, chain letters used to operate with
they
snail
were.
mail.
They were.
They used to
I
operate with
never
snail
got
mail.
one.
But they wasn't 18,
They weren't
it
as
was
frequent.
5 then because it was 30 cents a stick.
Yeah, but they come through email. But I never got one.
Yeah, they're going
So-
to
But it just seems to me if you get,
Maybe they
you
didn't
know,
like you.
Maybe they felt I was too intelligent.
I never got one either.
She couldn't take it.
What? You never got chain mail?
not snail mail chain letter.
But you too young.
Yeah, you
Yeah, what is
Oh, okay.
I mean,
I don't
snail
know what
mail
to tell
is.
you.
You already told me. You like me. You hurt my
Look at
feelings.
Sheldon eating it up.
It's time to go.
But I mean, if you somebody sends you something and it touches you and you like it and you want to share
That's
it with
fine.
people, that's fine. But this concept of a chain or there's an energy and if you break the energy,
Yeah.
what
Get
the
that all the time. It's
Yeah,
like
that's it.
guilt.
That's
What the hell?
proselytizing, evangelical. It's all that imposed stuff. Now you
Yeah.
feel guilty,
And
right?
that's control.
No. I don't.
And when suddenly
I
you gotta
hit
go.
delete.
Yep, that's it.
Well, some of us come from an age where we realize, I don't know if I have 18 people. I mean, nowadays on Facebook, I have 1,000 friends. Right? Yeah, sure. Some of us had 5 when we were
Yeah.
growing up. You know.
Okay.
Anyway.
From worship to chain letters to G.I. Jane.
Hey, let's say.
Okay. I hope that the main thing that we take away from this is the concept of delivering self through breathing and focusing without shaping what you're focusing on, and becoming one with, as a result of that, becoming one with the Father. I hope that's what we take from this. Yeah. Okay. I'm done. We're going to leave in a few moments. My aunt died in D.C., so that's what we're on our way to.
You're driving up there.